Hello everyone, welcome to Project Ace, and this is the second episode of the me trying to fix white in Commander videos. I'm not going to explain much of it this time. If you want to, you can go back to the first episode where I talk a little bit more in depth about what this is. Let's just go right to the cards. First one we're going to talk about today is a Man Maker. It's 1 and a white for a 2/2 dwarf knight. It's a creature. When a Man Maker comes into play, choose a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile it if its controller has more cards in hand than you. Yes, so you know about how white never had a what's his face? The 3 mana elf in green that blows up artifacts and enchantments. While now green has Masked Vandal, which is a 2 mana changeling that exiles any artifact or enchantment your opponents control. So green was already way ahead of us in that direction. So I thought white could use something. Of course, there's always going to be a restriction when it comes to white, but I also put in a upside, which is it can choose a non-land permanent. And yes, I know choose gets around targeting. Come on, like I said in the video before this, white needs all the help it can get. Anyways, I think this would be a really interesting card. It would be really good for ETB's decks. It's a good support card, which is something that white really does well. So I think it's an overall good card. I think that the opponents having more cards than you in white is a good way to make the cards better without ultimately breaking them, you know. So that's it for this one. Next is Blessings of Benevolence. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment aura, and you enchant a permanent you don't control. It is indestructible, and the enchanted permanent has indestructible and shroud, and you have protection from the enchanted permanent. This was a really cool idea I had off of those enchantments that have been coming lately in commander decks. Those that goad creatures or force them to attack and make it so that they can't attack you or planeswalkers you control in some cases. This one feels really good. It doesn't pump whatever it is that you enchant with it, but it gives it indestructible and shroud, so it makes it really hard for other players to interact with it, and even its owner is gonna have kind of a hard time interacting with it. It's an interesting card. It's a different kind of removal that I think would be actually kind of cool. Next up, this card, I know there is a card with this name already, Call to Arms, but honestly, the names of the cards aren't actually the focus of the ideas here. So it's 2 and a white for an enchantment. It reads, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player controls more creatures than you create 1/1 white knight creature tokens equal to the difference. Yes, I know, that could be broken. Maybe they should be exiled during the end step? Tell me what you think. You know, I just think it's a very white thing when the opposing forces are bigger, better, and stronger than yours to call in more soldiers. Who knows? It's Idea City over here. Next one is another aura. It's Divine Aid, 3 and a white for an enchant player. It has flesh, and as Divine aid comes into play, you choose a card type, and the enchanted player has protection from that card type. So, giving protection to stuff is a very white thing to do, and I think it could be used with more flexibility. So I think that choosing a card type may sometimes be stronger and it may sometimes be weaker than choosing a color. But I think that it is a design space that hasn't really been very much explored. So that's why I made this one. Next, it's follow command. 2 and white white for an enchantment that reads, creatures you control have vigilance, and at the beginning of each combat step, choose a creature you control. All other creatures you control have the same base power and toughness as that creature until end of turn. So, this is a very white thing, I believe, because white has that thing that everyone here is equal. But usually we see this as a everyone is as strong as the weakest link. But if you have a really strong leader, you could say that everyone is as strong as its strongest link. Sorry. Anyways, uh, this is an effect that actually gave me the idea of starting this series. I really think this would be a very strong thing for white to have. It already has the everyone shares their abilities thing in a few cards like Aldrich, the commander, but I think sharing of power and toughness could be really strong and really useful. And with the vigilance, it would just really make it really strong. And I mean, like, Cathars Crusade is a very strong card, and it's similar to this, and I even think Cathars Crusade might be stronger, but this is an effect that wouldn't take as much setup, and would be very interesting to see something like this. Next is an instant for 2 and a white for greater purpose. It reads, for each player choose friend or foe. Until end of turn, each friend has protection from each foe, and each foe must exile a non-land permanent they control for each friend that isn't you. So, friend or foe is a mechanic, I believe, from Battle Bond. Yes, from Battle Bond. That I think it was really underused, and also I think that it's really, really strong for white. You know, white has that feeling for me, at least, I believe, and it would be so cool to see it used in more cards. And this one is, I believe, pretty balanced. You could just give yourself protection from all your opponents if you want to. That could be a cool thing to do. You could give yourself and one more player protection, and then the other two would have to exile something they control. And you could just give 3 guys, including yourself, protection from one player, and they would have to exile 2 things they control. This looked like to me a really cool idea, so I did it. And yeah, there's one more card that I would like to talk about today, which is, well, pretty much white Ristic Study. um, yeah, so we had couple of years ago, I believe, Smothering Tithe, and a lot of talk rose from that for a white Ristic Study, because it's a very white effect, right? And some people seem to think that Mangara was something like that. I have a different opinion. Here is Proclaimer of Law. It's 2 and a white for a 1/3 human advisor. Whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first time they draw during their turn, they may pay to. If they don't, every other player may also draw a card. I don't exactly know how to write this in a way that it doesn't trigger off of itself. I would like tips on that, please, in a way that doesn't make the text of the card grow significantly. But the idea here is that um, it only counts the draw after the first one, and it gives the draw to everyone, which is once again one of those why things, equality, right? Everyone gets the same provisions. If you don't want to share, you're gonna have to pay extra. It's a very taxing effect, not stacks. I think it would be really cool and would make people wary of it. And since it's a creature, it's actually pretty easy to remove, honestly. Anyways, that's it for today. Tell me in the comments what you think. Uh, tell me how to fix the cards if you think they're too broken. And thanks for your attention. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you like the way I talk, I guess. And that's it. Thank you all very much. And have a good evening.